All right, gang. I'm kind of flopping back and forth here a little bit between the PowerPoints and the drawings, but I got a good little PowerPoint here on the scientific method. Yeah, I think this is basically all I really want you to know, and I kind of want to cook through it real fast. So, like, take notes on this to the best of your ability, whatever you get from this. Well, what the heck is science? It's both a body of knowledge and a process. But really, what it is it is a tool. It's something that allows us to understand the physical world around us. So I can take this little origami frog here and I can unfold it and peel it apart and see how it was folded and understand the process so that I can use that information to maybe build another one of these to replicate it. Well, it's a very powerful thing that we have here. It's limited, but it's very powerful. It allows us to understand the physical universe around us. So everything from that this table is made out of wood, which is made out of actually sugar, which is actually made out of the air. That's what science allows us to do. It's pretty crazy. And like I said, no chips, nitrogen, oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, phosphorus, sulfates, what you're made out of, those are just parts of the universe. All matter is really just energy. You're the universe looking at itself, trying to understand itself. When you learn something, you are the universe trying to understand itself. That's pretty weird. And science is a tool that allows us to understand ourselves, the universe. And I've got a little comet there in this shot. And now you'll see why in here in a minute. So science allows us to understand questions about the past. So for example, we can know how old the Earth is, a little over 4 billion years old. We can understand how old life is. It's about that, just as old as the Earth, a little bit younger. Where did we come from? These are huge questions, and science allows us to understand that. And I'm a spiritual person. I believe in things outside of the physical universe. So just because I'm a scientist does not mean that I don't have some types of spiritual beliefs. And for me, science and spiritual beliefs are separate, but they're also intertwined, and they don't negate one another. I think that's important to say. So we can understand the past with science, but we can also predict the future. So something in the immediate future, like what is the best day to have a barbecue, based on our understanding of weather patterns and so on and so forth. We can know how long the sun will burn. It's about 5 billion more years, which means we got to cook it off this earth if we want to stay alive as a species. And for example, just a year out, we can predict the future we can look at the mutations in a virus and determine which flu strain is the most likely to be the most virulent or infectious next year, so we can make a vaccine against that specific flu strain. So science allows us to understand our past and predict our future. And a good example of this, of how does science work, it always starts with an observation. And this gentleman, who is Halley, noticed that this comet, he was looking in research, noticed that a comet showed up every 76 years in the literature. And so after you make an observation like that, you then have a hypothesis. So a hypothesis, it's kind of a weird, strange word, but it's a possible explanation for what you see. Halley thought that, if this comet's showing up every 76 years, or a comet is showing up every 76 years, I hypothesized that comets orbit around the sun just like the Earth. So the hypothesis would be, it's the same comet. If comets orbit around the Earth, then we will see a comet every 76 years. So a hypothesis is always laid out like that. A prediction is then made about that experiment. I then, based on that hypothesis, that if-then statement, I predict that the comet will return in 1759. And so Haley made that observation, made that hypothesis, made that prediction, and it came true. You know, before this, people thought that comets were purely just magic. And they are a little bit of magic for sure. Giant orbs of fucking ice melting when they get close to the sun and ejecting freaking gas, and it's beautiful. And wow, how does any of this work? It's all magic. But we can make predictions to better understand how the universe works. And that's what Haley did, and the comet's named after him. So let's give it a try. We have an observation, or we have a set of numbers here, 2 and 4. So observation here would be, for example, that these numbers are increasing for sure. They're also both even. So maybe they're increasing by 2. So the hypothesis would be this number sequence is increasing by 2. The prediction would then be that the next number would be 6. So let's give it a shot and see what we see. It's not 6, it's 16. All right, so now 2, 4, 16. All right, maybe we're taking the square. Our observation is now it's not doubling, but it's doing something else. And if you take 2 times 2, that makes 4. If you take 4 times 4, that makes like 16. So maybe these numbers are squaring. So our hypothesis would be that the numbers are increasing by their own square. And so the next number would be 256, if that's true, which it is. And then it would be, everybody knows 256 times 256 is 65,536. All right. So just one other quick example here of how this works. So we've got a little bread experiment here. We got a fresh piece of bread. We put it in the refrigerator for 4 days. It comes out fresh still. And we take this piece of bread, it's fresh, leave it on the countertop for 4 days, and now it's covered in mold. So that's our observation. What would a potential hypothesis be? That temperature affects mold growth. That could be one. Another one could be that like maybe something in the air is causing the bread to mold. So if it's temperature based, maybe we could do the same experiment, put it in the refrigerator, but unplug it. See how that works. Now the temperature is going to be the same in the refrigerator as it is in the room. We could see the results there. Another thing we could do is put this piece of bread in a container out on the countertop. Does it still mold? Maybe both temperature and exposure to air are affecting mold, and we need to discern both of those individually, one at a time. Yeah, so this, we'll go back in kind of through this quickly in the next little lecture, but I wanted to give this little quick presentation. I'll see you guys in the next one. That's the basics of the scientific method. You observe something, you make a hypothesis, you do a prediction, you have a prediction, and then you run an experiment, right? You run an experiment, and then you draw some conclusions from that. And we'll go through all that in the next little bit. All right, I'll see you guys in the next one.